Hello and welcome to our 8 News Now Investigator program. I'm Kyle Payne, and with me today, Vanessa Murphy and David Charnes. What we're talking about is the brilliant coverage that Vanessa did of teen group home investigation, where children, arguably, and teens are, let's just say, having some trouble inside these group homes. And we have a brilliantly edited montage to give you an introduction of that coverage.
Anybody that experienced what I experienced is being abused mentally and emotionally.
The services that are supposed to be rendered on a daily basis, they aren't.
Just your normal Thursday with a helicopter.
At least weekly, we had police 911 calls.
It is just untenable that an organization like this should be around and should be allowed to, I don't even want to use the word treat children, to house them.
Did you feel safe in there?
No, I didn't.
Back here with 8 News Now investigator David Charnes and 8 News Now investigator Vanessa Murphy. Vanessa, who hosts High Heels and Hidden Truths, also streaming.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. A big star up here on the 8 News Now streaming app, available on Apple TV, Roku, and wherever else you may be able to find it on Samsung TV. Well, I just want people to know what a big deal you are. So, look, we have a few of these stories that started in July. It's November or December, the first week of December as we tape this. You've done quite a lot of work in a very little time on this. Before we get into the story about the employee who used to work there, can you sort of tell us how this all started?
Well, what's a group home? What's a teen group home?
So these are actually psychiatric residential treatment facilities. That's the term you use when you are looking them up in state records. So essentially, think of it like a step down from a hospital, right? So unfortunately, many of these teens or children are suffering from mental health issues. So you might think about eating disorders. You may think about harming themselves, self-harm. You might think about perhaps they might have tried to take their own life. So these are really serious issues.
Boys and girls in there.
Boys and girls, and they are likely hospitalized. And in some cases, the families told me that the hospital would only release them to a place like this, right? If you are in a hospital for something serious and people believe your life is in danger, they're not just going to say, okay, go home, especially for a child, right? So the parents, the families need to find a place like this. And the really sad part is they are often scrambling. These places are not cheap, right?
How much are they?
Well, it depends. So we talked with one dad, and he's really the one who sort of busted all this open, Noah Blumenthal from New York, because his son needed a facility. He said in some cases, this particular group was billing insurance $4,000 a day. Okay, so think about that.
No, that's a lot of dough.
And I think what we saw in that little video is that's a house in the middle of that's a regular house, yeah?
Yes, and look, even if you support, and hopefully you do, teens and children getting the mental health treatment they need, you probably don't want to live next to a place like this. It's unfortunate. That's what neighbors told us, because the police are there a lot. You might see
I don't want to
interrupt.
interrupt. We have to do your story about the employee.
Sure.
So you started with a family, a father and
Can
a
I ask
son.
one quick
question?
question?
Go ahead, quick.
Because I think we've talked about this, obviously not on camera, but the reason this story, the onset of this story was an email, correct?
It was an email from Noah Blumenthal who said,
to us.
My son is in this facility. I'm having trouble. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I don't think it's good. Please help.
So I think
I started looking into it.
It's a good example of how like an email
so important
can just spark
Our viewers give us
tons and
great
tons of stuff.
information.
Yeah, I never would have known about this if Noah didn't reach out.
A lot
to
of them
us.
are on high alert. And then after your excellent story, you heard from this employee.
We did.
And
Former employee.
Former employee, and here she is.
Thanks.
I'm afraid.
Pamela Gomez says speaking up isn't easy.
I think we all are afraid. Oh my
but she's taking this risk for a group of vulnerable children and teens who are in group homes in Las Vegas for mental health treatment.
The fear that I have is nothing compared to the fear of a child who can't do anything.
She tells the 8 News Now investigators she was hired by Moriah Behavioral Health, also known as Ignite Teen or Eden Treatment, in October of 2023.
I was brought in under the understanding that they had been through some problems and gotten, some sanctions.
Sanctions by state inspectors.
I was coming in to make things better.
She says she tried.
What is the very first red flag?
There was a habit, a custom in these homes to have the lights off all day long.
From keeping kids in the dark.
It was shocking to me.
To a lack of services.
The services that are supposed to be rendered on a daily basis, they aren't.
And broken promises to families.
The houses do not look like they look on the photos.
No, they don't.
Gomez recalls challenge after challenge.
Many of the people who work there have zero credentials, correct?
Yeah.
How do they get those jobs?
This was my problem. When I find out that somebody's coming, their experience is the fast food industry, that's concerning. I can say at least weekly, we had police 911 calls. We had, either flight risk or violence or something that we needed help with because we did not have properly trained staff.
But perhaps the most egregious, she says, the pressure to fill beds and what happened when she resisted.
They wanted me to bring in more kids, 3 more kids to fill the house up with no new employees and no time to train. When I asked for a freeze on admissions to the residential treatment facility that I was overseeing, and that's what upset the CEO. I was really blindsided when I was suddenly terminated for what I believe was for raising these alarms.
Before you were fired, did you see other people try to speak up and get the axe?
I saw 2 program directors get the axe, and I didn't know why.
Do you know why now?
No, I don't know. I haven't spoken to anyone. When I was terminated, I was threatened professionally. It sent a chill down my spine. It shut me up, It made me not want to talk about it.
How many times before you were fired do you think you tried to sound the alarm?
I was sounding the alarm from day one.
She says she's now back at it, sending this letter to Nevada Congresswoman Susie Lee asking her to take action.
From my perspective, a pattern of abuse and neglect.
State records point to the same problems. Right now, the business appears to hold 4 licenses. Under Ignite Teen Treatment last June, one home faced a notice of suspension, the other a notice of revocation. Under Eden, documents from April point to a failure to comply at one home, safety issues at the other. The business notes it is making changes.
This re-traumatizes people who are already traumatized.
This is kidnapping!
And that turns into an adult with mental health issues.
We reached out to Moriah Behavioral Health for a comment. The attorney responded in part, quote, "You should stop carrying water for the autocrats at Department of Health and Human Services and Department of Public and Behavioral Health and try some real journalism for a change," end quote. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
That was our real journalist, Vanessa Murphy's coverage of
She's real. We can
group
touch her. Yeah.
homes for teens and children.
guys.
We have to go to break, but Vanessa, you wanted to make a point about how people have reacted and interacted with you after this.
Since our first story, we have heard from so many people, former patients, former employees, current employees, who want to speak, but they are nervous. They don't want this place to sue them. They are nervous that perhaps they will be threatened professionally.
They're litigious.
Oh, that's too
And
bad.
Pamela is one example. She was really on the fence about speaking publicly, and then she finally made the decision and sat down with us. So thank you to her.
Well, you did wonderful. The compassion, the high human drama. We'll see more of it after this break with an actual patient coming right up. Welcome back to our 8 News Now Investigator program covering Vanessa Murphy's coverage of teen group homes for children and teens. And David Charnes, you're up
Got
next.
a question. Always full of questions. But the comment you made at the end of that story about holding water for the state, I think is important to acknowledge because we have already said this came from an email, right? You're doing your due diligence, which you're talking about these teen group homes. Obviously, it involves, we saw those Secretary of State records, DHHS records. Why do you think they're saying that you're doing the state's job? Because that never really made sense to me.
I don't know. That's a good question. I will tell you that I did reach out to them, several times before these stories aired. And some of the responses you might find surprising. It was more, instead of addressing perhaps a state audit or addressing what state inspectors said they found, the responses were more of a shot at me
Doing
as a
your work,
journalist
right.
and at Channel 8. I discussed them with our boss, and he said, you're not going to repeat all of this on air. The
Right.
story is about the allegations, not me.
Right. And I think when that story aired and you made that comment, I think that it's important to note that if those folks had done some research, they would find that you or me have clearly not been on the side of DHHS because we've fought them for information before.
Right.
So
I'm actually glad you're bringing this up because we talked about this earlier today.
it just doesn't make sense to me when people are like, oh, you're
Right.
doing the prosecutor's job or state. It's like, well, we literally fight them tooth and nail every day for this kind of stuff.
Right. And in previous stories, I've done a lot of reporting on Child Protective Services.
Right,
and a few
against
years
them.
ago, we did a couple of stories where we showed they really dropped the ball and the consequences of that were as tragic as you can get.
Right.
So no, we don't work for them.
No,
Well-
we don't. And we literally fight them for
Right.
documents and information all
we
the time.
try to be fair. We
Yeah.
try to be fair.
I just
If
wanted
they
to-
are doing their jobs, we'll show them doing their jobs. If they're not, we're going to show that too.
It's also a credit to you and to management that they let you and you all decided to go on and tell the viewers that they ranked on
Took
you
a
like
shot.
that. Yep, and you hit it head on. But it's also important to say that they didn't dare say you got anything wrong. They've never said, by the way, we're going to sue you because you have made this mistake.
I mean, they would argue that they would probably argue that our reporting is not accurate, but I did not get the type of thing of
You're
this specific thing
is
is wrong.
Well, and they would have had it been wrong.
Yes.
I imagine. Okay, that's just one man's opinion. We've heard at the beginning of the story about the father and son duo. Then we heard from an employee. Now we're going to have an in-depth interview with an actual patient at one of these teen group homes, right now.
It should be shut down.
This is a former patient of Ignite Teen Treatment. She says at 17 years old in 2020, she spent 7 months for mental health treatment at this home on Bahama Bay Court in Las Vegas. We're protecting her identity at her request.
Anybody that experienced what I experienced is being abused mentally and emotionally. They're not getting better.
But it appears state inspectors are prohibited from entering the 4 licensed homes run by the business also known as Mariah Behavioral Health in Clark County since District Court Judge Jennifer Schwartz signed this temporary restraining order on November 5th, 2 days after the business filed this lawsuit against the state of Nevada and the agencies responsible for overseeing the homes with claims of abuse of power and claims of being targeted with illegal inspections and record requests. Then also claiming if state inspectors enter the home, the actions could be retaliatory. The next court date is November 20th. Until then, it appears the state cannot check on children and teens inside the homes without a warrant.
I would say to them that they should get a warrant to search that place and actually go in there and see everything with their own eyes.
The Nevada Attorney General's office arguing against the temporary restraining order, pointing to the business's refusal to let inspectors speak with the children and teens in previous months, Nevada Medicaid in the dark as to who's the medical director that's required, and repeated violations and complaints. Medicaid listing 25 incidents since March, including substantiated physical abuse, medical neglect, even consensual sexual activity with a peer resulting in an STD. On October 24th, Medicaid issued a 20-day notice of intent to terminate to all of the facilities. What followed? The business filed that lawsuit 10 days later.
Did you feel safe in there?
No, I didn't. I was a runaway many times over there because I didn't feel safe and because I didn't get my needs met.
What made you not feel safe?
Witnessing how staff reacted to outbursts, how staff reacted to any patient having an episode. I didn't feel safe. Nobody felt safe at that point. There were a lot of tools over there that we were able to self-harm with. If it is a mental facility that people are having issues with self-harm and suicide and all those things, why are half the stuff over there?
As far as the employees, did they seem equipped to handle your needs?
Not at all. I mean, how could somebody that smells from weed handle my needs?
She recalls a revolving door.
Every day we got new staff somehow.
Along with frequent police visits, brief psychiatric treatment appointments, and isolation.
The first week that you show up, there are no phone calls. You don't have any communication with the outside world.
And then when she did have phone access,
is there an employee next to you?
Yes.
So did you feel comfortable telling your parents what you were experiencing with an employee next to you?
No.
Attorneys for the state write the business's lawsuit is a red herring, and state oversight is needed to protect the vulnerable children who need psychiatric care.
I've tried taking my life many times after I was there. It's very sad to say that I have nightmares from igniting treatment.
We reached out to Judge Schwartz to ask why she signed the temporary restraining order and did not receive a response. The state is asking for an expedited hearing. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Okay, another excellent in-depth story about this teen group home situation. You had a comment you wanted to make about gaslighting.
Well, I think in many cases, the former patients say that they tried to explain how they were being treated or how things were inside these facilities. They would try to tell family members on the phone. Obviously, the access to the outside world was limited. And then when you have the police show up and there's an issue, the former patients would tell me they tried to tell the police, like, I shouldn't be in here. I'm not getting what I need. But then you have the employees saying, look, this is a psychiatric residential teen treatment facility. This comes with the territory. And certain people would explain this as gaslighting.
Right.
So did
sort of consider the source kind of thing.
Yeah,
we have to go to break. So when we come back, this story takes a wildly unexpected turn, and Vanessa covers that like a pro right after this. Welcome back to our 8 News Now Investigators program. This one about Vanessa Murphy's coverage of group homes for children and teens. We have heard stories from a father and son who dealt with the company and those group homes, an employee that no longer works there, a teen at the time who no longer goes there but had a lot to say. And then I think we can all agree this took a turn.
It took a turn. We learned about a lawsuit. We learned about a restraining order, which I did not expect. And things sort of sped up in our investigation here.
And in that restraining order, the company asked a judge, they didn't like the way the state was treating them, it's fair to say.
Correct.
And they asked a judge, because of that treatment, we don't want them coming into our facilities until we've had a chance to let a judge handle some of our problems.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And with that intro, let's watch that package.
This is something we don't often see, a court battle over whether state inspectors can do their jobs. And in this case, it's about the safety and well-being of children and teens. Now, a judge's decision will give state inspectors access to group homes again.
It's the annihilation of my client's business. What's the hardship to the defendant?
This is Mariah Behavioral Health versus Nevada state agencies responsible for overseeing psychiatric residential treatment facilities the company owns in Las Vegas. The Attorney General's office represents the defendants.
We know that the risk of serious harm to children in these facilities generally is significant.
Here's how it all began. State records show a history of problems inside the homes, violations, and a lack of cooperation by the business. The 8 News Now investigators began reporting on the homes in July, speaking with former employees, patients, and parents.
It is just untenable that an organization like this should be around and should be allowed to, I don't even want to use the word treat children, to house them.
We uncovered concerns from neighbors and calls for service and help.
This is kidnapping! No, I am not safe!
In a summary of incidents, Nevada Medicaid points to substantiated allegations of physical abuse by staff members, substantiated allegations of medical neglect, failure to do background checks, consensual sexual activity with a peer resulting in a sexually transmitted disease, and more. And on October 24th, issued a 20-day notice of intent to terminate to each of the group homes. 10 days later, the business filed this lawsuit against state agencies and argued the state might retaliate. On November 5th, Judge Jennifer Schwartz signed a temporary restraining order which prevented inspectors from entering the homes. Clark County then telling the judge when child welfare workers showed up at a home to investigate possible abuse and neglect with 2 warrants, the restraining order interfered. Thursday, Schwartz lifted the restraining order, but not without a fight from attorney Mark Hutchings, who represents the business and its CEO, Mendy Barron.
I don't want the state to be precluded from making sure that the facilities are safe.
Hutchings telling the judge what is happening here in Nevada is affecting his client's business in Iowa and Illinois. Reporting in downtown Las Vegas, Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Another excellent report. I'm going to say from my own, only for me, from my own vantage point, I'm surprised a judge would say a state inspector can't go into a facility where teens are arguably
possibly getting STDs
and the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
You are not the only one who was surprised. Multiple sources were surprised. I was surprised. When you have a license to operate a facility like this, you expect that the state can show up and make sure that it's safe and that the kids are okay.
One thing that we haven't touched on though is the first story with the dad that aired focused on one facility, but how many different houses and facilities would you say are in this umbrella?
Okay, so this company, which operates as Mariah Behavioral Health, Ignite Teen Treatment, and Eden Treatment, I believe they've had as many as 5 licenses. Right now, I think they have 4 from
so those
state
houses
records.
that we're seeing,
they
in
own
that
them.
video.
Yes.
And again, these houses are right in the middle of a neighborhood. You know, group homes exist for many different reasons, whether it's traditional housing or drug rehab or things like that. What do you think, though, makes, or what have you seen, because I don't think it's appropriate to ask you this, but what have you seen in documentation that makes the location of these homes risky?
What do you mean?
So we're seeing the behavior, we're seeing the police called. Is there an inherent dangerousness that these exist?
Look, do I think, I'm not a neighbor, I don't live near one of them, but do I think you could operate one of these homes and have less of a disruption in the community? Personally, in my opinion, I think if you have the correct employees, right? People who have been trained in how to care for these patients, if you have the correct security, if you have the right resources and enough activities for the kids to go to so they're not just sitting in a house with nothing to do most of the time, I think maybe it could work. But if you ask the neighbors, they're going to say, no, no, no.
But that's also where thousands of dollars a day would arguably go into making that work. Okay, so we saw quite an array of excellent coverage of that story. There's going to be more, I have no doubt.
100%.
100%. You can count on that. You do not take the foot off the gas pedal. And you can see these episodes of our show every Monday night, new episodes. And then you can also, in almost the same place, the very same streaming app, see Vanessa's own show, High Heels and Hidden Truths, once a week. We look forward to all of those episodes and having you join us in them. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.